So, the transfer window is done at Leeds United. Well, not just at Leeds United, everywhere except Saudi Arabia and Turkey for some reason. A little bit of a dick move on their part, but it's weird. But that doesn't mean that everything is fine. That doesn't mean that everything is quiet. That doesn't mean that everything has been done with. Not everything is complete. And we have a hell of a lot of work left to do outside the world of transfers, ideally behind the scenes, board stuff. So, making this video, I figured I would ask the question of what exactly are the 49ers' next challenges? And I think they are pretty big. I think they could cause some pretty big issues. And we need to remember that the transfers aren't just the start, but they are the more visible bit. Next up, we've got the everything else, the bit that we need to hold to account. So it's ideal that we have this conversation now. We can keep an eye on it as the season goes, and then we can get a better idea of, right, how are things looking going into the future? So the first of those is continual youth work. Now, we had a lot of conversation yesterday, not on this channel, but around Leeds United YouTube, around the Ngenge stuff, the Nigerian left-back that we are looking to sign from his current club. I can't remember exactly what club it is, sorry, but my Nigerian football isn't ideal. 16-year-old, absolute wonder kid, and this is what I mean by doing continual youth work. You can sign young players at all sorts of ages. Transfer window basically doesn't apply too much. Not ages, but all sorts of times. The transfer window doesn't really apply too much, and it means that you can just sort of pick up good players here, there, and absolutely everywhere. We need to make sure that after we've basically depleted our realm of youth players who were formerly a Crescencio Somerville, a Pascal Strauch, the under-21s don't look too perfect at the minute. So we need to make sure that we are topping those up wherever we can, whenever we can, and making sure that we are looking significantly healthier going into the future. That is the foundation of a good football club, the fact that you've got decent players behind that first team, and being able to rebuild that between transfer windows would just be the icing on the cake, I think, and prove that the 49ers are doing a lot of decent work right now. Outside of that, not on the footballing side, is international branding and growth. Now, this is the really boring stuff that no one really enjoys. This is the, sponsorships side of things and the, finance side of things. But it's still important because looking through the names that we signed this summer, there was one that I paid a significant amount of attention to, and it's Autanaka. There's one thing that I have learned from working in sports broadcasting across a wealth of locations, including Germany and France and Spain and the UK and the US. And when it comes to locations that are nuts about their big players, Japan's the one. And Autanaka is a very, very promising, consistent international midfielder that plays for Japan. And this is where we need to do that international branding. Because it's a really boring thing to say, to go, yeah, well, we've signed this player because the marketing opportunities are huge, but it's true. He's a very good player. Perfect opportunity to do some marketing, grow our fan base. I wouldn't be too surprised if he stays throughout the next season. We just start doing pre-season tours in Japan because it makes sense for us. Because that sort of branding opportunity is what we need, especially if we get promoted. We need to make our say immediately and get down to things and go, look, we've got this international fan base. Come to our club because the people will love you. And they will, because, I mean, Leeds United admittedly doesn't have the best of reputations, but we're already a big club, and I think this is an opportunity to make us even bigger by focusing on the outreach stuff when the season isn't ongoing. And that would also help to deal with some of the potential fan concerns that we've got. A lot of people have concerns about the Red Bull thing. Understandably, because we've seen what happens with Red Bull-owned clubs everywhere. The general gist is, owned by Red Bull, become Red Bull. Admittedly, UK law makes that incredibly difficult, and it's not really a concern that I've got because it's not something that I see as being particularly possible, but it's something that we need to pay attention to. Something that we need to say, right, okay, are you going to do anything to make sure that we are 100% feeling good about this? Because if it's silence, then that's a problem. But at the same time, we need to ask those questions in order to get those answers. And there's further questions. So one of the fan concerns was that the Pavilion Square, Centenary Square, Centenary Pavilion, Centenary Square, same thing. I messed the wrong words together. The Stones were looking horrific recently, but it's been said by the club that they're looking to significantly improve that, better manufacturers, and that's the sort of thing that we need to pay attention to. The sort of like stuff that's for the fans. Are they taking the steps in the for the fans stuff that are putting us in the right direction? And I think it's a good step in the right way. But again, we don't get those questions answered unless they are asked, which is big. And in terms of big, Elland Road's quite large, but Elland Road will be larger going forwards, which is why we need to start having the stadium conversation again. The majority of this stadium discussion has been based around when we get to the Premier League, we can sort X, Y, and Z. We're at the point where we sort of need to get the plans in place, because the sooner we are able to get that done, the sooner we are more financially stable, the sooner we are sturdy, the sooner we are able to continue pushing forwards as a club. But if we're only submitting the plans for planning permission next season because we're in the Premier League, then what are we doing? Because that's just going to slow down all the development. That's going to mean that we're going to spend longer without big attendances when in the Premier League. That's going to mean that we are going to spend even longer trying to catch up financially. Because once we have that big ground, then match day income goes through the roof and we're able to compete a little bit more effectively without saying, okay, we might have to sell a player this summer. Because that match day income accumulates, adds up, gets big. And the sooner we are able to act on the stadium stuff, the better. So we need to ideally see progress on it now if we want to see things happening in the next year or two. So we've got to pay attention to that. And with all of these challenges, we need to keep an eye on it, because why all this matters is because whilst on the football pitch the results are what we see, it's behind the scenes that you set those foundations. And if you've not set those foundations effectively, then on the pitch doesn't improve either. And things start to spiral, and they're not great, and there's potential problems, and it's bad. But as always, that's just what I think, that's how I'm seeing things, and I'm gonna, because I'm recording this one live, hop over to the chat to open up Questions Corner. So I'll give it a minute, and then if anyone has any questions about any of the board stuff, any of the long-term planning stuff, I'll answer a few of those, and then I will bring the video to a close, just because I like doing these live recording things where everyone gets to feel a little bit more involved. Feels like everyone has their say in the content, and it just brings people more into it, which is absolutely fantastic. I'm scrolling through the comments now, and I can't really see too much, but that's because I forgot to ask, which is kind of on me. But with the board stuff, I'm always just a little bit spooked, because behind the scenes with the money, we don't see, which isn't good. So you got to hope what's going on. Question from Danny Talk Sport. Did you know Red Bull have signed with Newcastle? I did not. Have they? Surely that's not a thing. I've just Googled Red Bull Newcastle. Ish. What it looks like has happened is Red Bull has become their official energy drink partner. That doesn't feel like that's necessarily something that converts into a full sponsorship, that doesn't convert into like ownership chunks, which especially isn't going to be the case because Red Bull does this for reputational goodness. They're not doing it on the profit front. Formula One isn't profitable. Their various motocross things aren't profitable. I find it incredibly hard to believe that the Red Bull soapbox thing is profitable. It's reputational stuff. I feel like them jumping into bed with Saudi owners isn't going to be good for the reputation no matter what, and will just cause them problems in the future. But who knows? We'll find out. Do you feel there are any improvements that can be done now for the stadium? Yes, I think in terms of internal stuff is how we can improve the stadium now. I think safe standing in as many spots as possible would be good. There's some things that you can't improve, so like all the way to the left of the West End is not something that is going to get better right now, because this leg room is horrendous. Being a somewhat tall person, we've got some short people in the chat, but who knows? And yeah, it's not the best place to sit if you're tall, and it's not something that will get fixed. There's stuff that's like that is structural that you're unable to fix, but other things such as improving the basic facilities like toilets is stuff that I feel like wouldn't really take too much to do. But who knows? Do we think the share of new seats will mainly be for exec boxes or actual seats for the fans? I think there'll be a slightly higher share of executive boxes, but there'll be a hell of a lot of seats for actual fans. Getting the attendance number up is also important because you get to sort of show off to other clubs and say, look, we're huge, it's really big, it's fantastic. But if you're just doing executive boxes, you can't really do that. You can add like 500 people to your total. You've made a load of money, but you've not impressed anyone. Whereas you can make the same amount of money, get more fans in, get reputationally more good, which again, Red Bull will be focusing on. The 49ers will be short-term focusing on, I guess. But it's hard to say. And finally, for Questions Corner, before I just dive into general chatting, I'm right in saying the 49ers will only invest in the stadium following promotion. I believe so. I think so. But I imagine stuff like planning and architecture stuff will already be in the pipeline because it'd be very weird if that didn't happen. Regarding the pavilion square, does that mean my stone will be replaced? I think so. It'll be replaced with the same name and stuff. But yeah, the way that they said it was that they'd replace the existing ones and also open up space for new ones and give one to like a Bielsa and I think they mentioned Wilkinson as well, maybe Reeve, I'm not certain. But yeah, that is it for Questions Corner at the moment. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, like, subscribe, become a channel member, all that sort of stuff. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. I will see you later. But if you're on the live stream, don't leave. Please don't leave. Please, 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 please. Because I'm still going to do more live streaming. Ah!